I have been writing every day, more or less, for the past 5 years. If any of you guys who know my backstory, a friend of mine asked me to write articles for his website. I wrote one article for the website. I wrote 2 articles, 3 articles, half a dozen articles. Next thing you know, 5 years has passed and I've been writing every day. I've published 3 books. My work has been read by millions of readers each year, email lists with tens and thousands of people. And it is this consistent writing habit that has helped me do what most bloggers never do, which is build a full-time career writing. And I know that's the ultimate goal for a lot of you. I know that that goal seems distant from you because you just have so much work that you have to put in, and you have to motivate yourself to write every day, or at least almost every day, to get that consistent pattern to where you're gonna have a strong enough voice, a big enough fan base, a compelling message, just all the kind of elements that you need to be successful writing. So how do you motivate yourself to write every day for the long term? In today's video, I'm going to give you a specific set of tips. I don't know how many, but it's going to be a good number of tips that's going to help you stay motivated to write every single day. And if you follow through and implement the advice that I'm going to give you, you'll be well on your way to building a successful writing career. One thing that I've found is kind of the less of an ability that you have to think on your feet and come up with good ideas, the more work you're going to have to put in up front. So I've talked about this in other videos, a simple framework that I use to kind of come up with ideas and then formulate the ideas into a blog post that I'm going to put out. So in terms of generating ideas, I spent every day writing 10 headlines each day to build that idea muscle and come up with new ideas so that I can have a continuous stream of things to write about. The second thing I do, or the thing that I used to do before I built such an intuitive sense of how to write, was use the combination of mind maps and outlines. Now, a mind map is very simple. You have the central idea in the middle of your notepad when you're scribbling out your idea for the post. Then you have little bubbles, which are the sub ideas. And then you have some little bubbles underneath the sub ideas, which are kind of the topics within those ideas. And that brainstorming session, so to speak, helps you get your ideas all the way out there onto the page, so you have some sense, some semblance of what you're going to do, right? Now, the next thing that you can do is you can take those and put that into a formal outline. This is something that you would open up like a Google Doc or a Word document, and you would write out all your points, write out bullet points for the subpoints, have a clear structure for what you're trying to accomplish in each point, what you're trying to accomplish for the introduction and the conclusion. And you can use this process to really formulate the article before you pen a word. There was an article I wrote for Smart Blogger, which is one of the top blogging websites in the world, and it took me 6 months to write an article with them. That's how strict their editing standards are. But it took several hours just to fill out the outline and formulate the idea. Not only did they have me flesh out the outline, they had objectives for what the post is going to accomplish. They had target audiences. They had me research data and statistics I was going to cite before I sat down to do anything. So we went real deep into what the post was to accomplish and kind of deep into the psychology of the reader themselves before I even wrote a single word. So the more that you do the work up front, the easier it's going to be to write. In copywriting, which is the process of writing advertisements and everything, the number one step isn't actually the writing itself. The number one step is research. So if you understand what you're trying to accomplish before you sit down to write, it'll be a lot easier for you. So that threefold process of generating ideas, then using the mind map and the outlines over and over again will help you come up with some of the ideas beforehand, to where I see a lot of aspiring writers get stuck because they just open up a blank page and they think, oh, I'm just going to start writing. So that leads to them writing all these random rambling stories about their life, things that equate to a journal entry, etc. And then you get frustrated because your stuff isn't good. Your writing's not going to be very good that way if you try to just write whatever you feel like and don't really have an intuitive sense for it. So If you are someone who, you consider yourself not maybe, super quick to come up with great ideas, then you're going to have to spend more time focusing beforehand. And again, this process of coming up with ideas and structuring things before you write is something that you can use throughout, the entire duration of your writing career. So I've always used that to a degree. And even if I'm kind of sitting there and writing an article from scratch, I am mapping it out in my head first, because I have developed that ability to create that format because I kind of physically did it so many times. All right, the next one, we're just going to get this one out of the way because I'm actually going to move into some other tips that will be maybe a little bit more counterintuitive, surprising, novel, etc. But you got to write at the same time every day. The time blocking is one of those cliche, not just writing techniques, but productivity techniques that works amazingly well. So I built my writing career, primarily waking up in the morning before I had to go to work, when I had some, both the free time and quiet and the mental bandwidth to have some space to write. So that was my time block that I wrote for every single day before I would go to work. And I kind of slowly built my writing career doing it about an hour or two a day. And that's the thing you'll realize, is that it doesn't really take that much time with each individual session. It's the culmination and the combination of all those sessions, which is kind of hard to fathom because you can't see that far into the future. But I promise you, you will get better if you focus on that time block. Another strategy I've mentioned often is the idea of this chain strategy, which was attributed to Jerry Seinfeld, but he said he really didn't do it. But the concept still works anyway. So the myth goes that Mr. Seinfeld would write a single joke every single day, and he would mark an X on his calendar each time he wrote a joke. Now, when you create that X and you create a series of those X's, you start to form a chain. And the longer the chain, the less likely you are to break it because of that psychological kind of imprint seeing that long line creates in your mind. So you just have to be consistent, and there's no magic recipe for being consistent as a writer other than you have to do it. There's that quote, I write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, I write at 9 a.m. every single morning. So consistency is key, but we're going to move on to some other more inspirational and maybe even less pragmatic, but things that'll get you in the mindset to motivate yourself to write every single day. The next thing I want to impart to you, or kind of want to tell you to get you inspired, is you don't realize how scary good that you can get at writing if you practice. Like, you will be universes away from where you are right now. Trust me. Like, I have this one blog post, maybe I'll find the link for it, but I show an old piece of my writing to where if you read this piece of writing that I would share in that post, you wouldn't think it was me. You would think it was somebody else. So people always give me all this praise. I don't know if it's warranted or not. Oh, you're such an amazing writer. You're so good, blah, 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 blah. And it's just because I practiced a lot and I never quit. It's kind of like that analogy where someone asked, how did you get in such great shape? That six pack, what magic trick? It's like, no, you worked out, counted your calories, ate healthy food, worked out 4 or 5 times a week. Boom. Years later, you have an amazing body, right? But what I do want to get across to you is that you won't feel like a newbie forever. You won't feel like the ideas aren't connecting the way you want them to forever. You won't have that kind of gap between what you aspire to be and what you are forever. You will close that gap, and you can get like freaky, insane good. One thing I love to do, I think I've mentioned this in other videos, is that I always look at the early works of some of my favorite creators. So if it's a blogger, I'll go look at their archives, and lo and behold, pretty much all of the writers and bloggers I look up to have been at it anywhere from 5 to 10 years. I've mentioned this in my personal development writing. Actually, there's this thing called the 5-year rule, to where if you want to be successful at something, give it 5 years, and if you practice consistently, it's pretty much guaranteed that it'll work. And the same thing applies to blogging. I remember reading a blog post from one of my mentors, John Morrow, and he said it'll take about 4 to 6 years for you to be good enough at blogging to really kind of create wealth and a full-time income from it. So I took his advice at face value, wrote for 5 years, and here I am. Freaky good compared to the way that I used to write. In the beginning, I was just focusing on putting together one blog post. The idea of, my most recent book was 65,000 words long, really connected a lot of big ideas together, really an amazing feat. That's something I could not do 5 years ago. And I couldn't even imagine creating a book of this quality to where I feel like it deserves to be on a Barnes & Noble bookshelf with any other self-help book. That's what practice gives you. So just understand, it's okay. You don't have to be good right now. You're not supposed to be good right now. You are supposed to kind of suck at writing right now. It's okay. I publish a lot of videos on being successful on Medium. And, one thing I talk about with those videos is, I kind of wish Medium, wouldn't let you earn money right away or wouldn't let you see your earnings, because I see a lot of writers get discouraged when they're not really making any money on Medium. But, in my case, I didn't make any money, period. Medium didn't even exist when I started writing. I had to make my bones learning the craft before I got paid. And that's the same thing you're going to have to do too. Just trust me when I say, if you practice, you will get a lot better. Remember why you got into the game of writing in the first place. Remember why you wanted to start blogging in the first place. If you're anything like me, you have always wanted to get the words out. You have always had something to say. You have always had this itch. They say us writers, we just have this mental disease where we feel like we just have to say things, right? And you're not going to be satisfied with your life if you don't get your words out. If you're really a writer like me, which I suspect that you are, you're not going to be happy unless you get those words out. You're not going to feel fully fulfilled, fully self-actualized until you continue to put those words out. And, for whatever reason, becoming a writer is just one of the most strong and prevalent dreams that people have. And let me tell you, becoming a successful writer is just as freaking cool as you think it is. It's just as awesome as you think it is. It is as amazing as you imagine it to be. So I encourage you to follow through with it, because people need to hear what you have to say. People need different lenses on the world. We don't have enough time to experience all that the world has to offer. We don't have the time to go through the range of every single human experience. So how do we supplement that? We read stuff from other people. I read advice from people because they've done what I wanted to do. I've read stories from people that interest me so I can pick up the lessons in their life without having to go through the same experience. I can shortcut my life, my learning curve experiences by writing. I can kind of absorb the soul of another human being when I read their writing. And that's the same thing that you'll be able to do for other people. Now, I've talked about this, and you have to go about it a certain way. You can't do it in a self-serving way where you're just kind of rambling your personal journal. But when you learn the techniques that I teach on this channel combined with your personal experience, you really are giving a gift to people in the world. There are people out there who appreciate the content I put out and whose lives are changed by my content. And I get to change my own life while changing other people's lives. That is awesome. So remember why you got into this, because you want to be that person to make a change in other people's lives. You want to be the person to educate people, entertain them, inspire them, tell stories, give them perspective. Remember why you got in it so you don't quit. People they lose sight of why they got into writing in the first place, and they get frustrated at their lack of progress and they quit. It's like, remember why you got into it. And I'll leave you with this final lesson. If you really want to get good at writing, it should be a forever thing. This should be something that you work on for the rest of your life. Why wouldn't it be? Why are you in such a rush? If you really want to do this, you should be able to write for the rest of your life. Why does it, I get not having the motivation before you start to get momentum, but just get yourself to that momentum point, and then you'll write every day because you like writing, because you like expressing yourself, because it's something you want to do for the rest of your life. Quit being we're just in this instant gratification society where everyone wants the results right away. Nobody wants to do the work. Everyone's going through all these get rich quick schemes. It's nonsense. You can have success with writing. You can make money writing, but you should just consider those things that will happen in your journey as you continue to write for the rest of your life. So keep that in mind, that this is not a short-term prospect, and if you're really in it for the love, it should be a lifelong thing. You should just wake up and want to be motivated to write every single day. And some of those habits and routines I talked about earlier will help you get into that flow, but that sentiment should be there. Scratch that itch, and scratch it enough times and you'll continue to do it for basically forever. Okay, those are the tips. Those are the things that can help you stay motivated to write every single day. I hope you find those tips useful, and I hope they inspire you to go on a long run of successfully published blog posts. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is look down in the description. You're going to see two very important links. One is going to be a free 5-day email course teaching you how to be a successful writer on the website medium.com. So check that out below. Click the link, enter your email, and you'll get started on that course right away. The next thing is a link to my premium online course for those of you who want to dive right in to some of the more advanced concepts. That course walks you through how to be a successful writer, how to make money on Medium, and how to build your audience on the platform. So check both of those links out. Lastly, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you can get brand new videos the moment that they come out. Make sure you smash the like button, leave a comment, leave ideas for new videos that you want to see me create in the future. Momentarily, you will be seeing a few videos pop up right before your eyes. Check those out, and I will see you on the next video.